for a renewed statement of civility, the CDO search, the student roles in strategic planning efforts this spring, and also some current thoughts and updates about commencement. I know a lot of you are probably wondering what's going to happen commencement, so I would like to tell you where we are right now with all that. Now, for the statement on civility, I think it's very important that we have one, and I like the current statement, but we would like to involve you, and Vice President King will tell you sort of what we're thinking of how we're going to involve you in having a statement of civility. And what happened last weekend, and I don't know if you saw, if you know, or if I saw you the email, this was not civility. This is not what should be happening on our campus. So all for a statement of civility, but it's something that we should craft together, both students and faculty and administration, and move forward on this matter, and hopefully do it before the new students enroll, so they know what the statement is and what Roger Williams' values are and what we're all about. CDO search. Things are going great. We have two students, Sophie Steliopoulos and Elizabeth Candelaria, on the committee. The committee has finalized the job description, and our search firm is actively recruiting the candidates. And the committee will review resumes over the next few weeks. And interviews are happening between about March 15th, 17th, and we'll narrow down to 3 to 4 candidates. And also we're going to have virtual interviews for the whole campus. These interviews will possibly happen late March into April, and we'll keep you, the Senate and the community informed about the process. Also, made a decision that the new CDO will be in charge of the Intercultural Center, and the staff will be returning to report to the CDO once the position is filled. And Zoela and Gabi have been doing a great job in the absence of a CDO. One change we will make, we'll have a much stronger tie between the multicultural intercultural center staff and the student life division. Much stronger, because we have made a lot of progress in the absence of CDO, really connecting student life staff with these entities, and we think that's going to benefit all the students that are connected to this as well. We are in the midst of strategic planning. That's something that I started during my first semester here, and we thought we would finish the strategic plan in the spring of 2020. As you know, things happened and then we stalled, but now we're in full speed continuing with strategic planning. We've had numerous meetings with deans and faculty and staff, and of course we would like to hear your voices. So we'll be in touch to figure out what we have focus groups and other involvement in committees over the next couple of months, because we're going to be done with the strategic plan in May, and then we'll connect the strategic plan, academic strategic plan, with the physical plan, the master plan for the campus, how the campus is going to look over the next 10, 20, 30 years, and finish all this planning by the end of the summer. So we'll be in touch with you to figure out how we can involve you, so you can give us a very important feedback and input in this process. Commencement. As you know, I'm passionate about commencement. I have been president now for 2 years, and I haven't had a commencement yet, and I haven't had an inauguration yet, so I'm all for in-person commencement. But this is where we are. It's uncertain how things are going to be. The commencement is 2.5 months away. However, we have to start making some decisions based on the data we have. There are lots of decisions and lots of logistics. For example, renting tents. You have to rent a tent 3 months in advance of time. So we are currently, if things remain the way they are, we're planning to have a hybrid commencement like your classes. So have the graduating class be in-person commencement. It won't be like a normal commencement for obvious reasons, but we would have you march and into the commencement stage by school, and faculty and staff and administrators will cheer you. Your parents could see the whole ceremony virtually online, and have this general ceremony in the beginning would be pre-recorded, and then you watch it. You and your parents can watch it whenever they would like. And so that's sort of where we are right now. For the class of 2020, plans to potentially have a similar experience the day after the senior class leaves campus. So that's pretty much where we are. Let me see if I have any other notes here. So we're going to be monitor the website for the commencement if you are seniors and interested in that. And still things are in flux. We do not know how things are going to go. If they are much better and we can have some better experience with guests, we'll do so. That's my priority. If things get worse, we may change plans altogether. So we've had a great semester so far, and hopefully the weather would be good. And I will have a surprise one of these days that we don't know yet when it's going to be, because it's going to be a surprise. I'm going to send a text to all students and faculty and tell them today the day is off and you can go out and enjoy the weather. Of course, it's weather dependent, so I cannot tell you when it's going to be, but it's going to be sometime probably in March. So you have to wake up every day at 6 o'clock in the morning and check your text to make sure that you didn't miss the message. So that's a joke, you know. Anyway, so thank you all, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, President Mialis. We'll start a speakers list right now, but if you don't mind me asking my question first, I just kind of wanted to address the email we got 10 minutes before this meeting began involving the incident in Maple Hall. Either you, President Mialis, or Dr. King, either if you want to take this on, just want to provide a content warning to everyone in the meeting in case you haven't read that email yet. But if anyone has, if either of you have any updates on that, that you are all willing or able to share with us.
Dr. King will give you more details because he's the one that got all the information. But this is totally what Roger Williams is not about. This is not the family atmosphere I've talked to the Senate we want to create. This is horrible. It's not a freedom of expression. It's not freedom of speech. It's just horrible. John?
Well, thank you, President Mialis. And Sam, I appreciate the question. We received a Maxient incident report at about 9:50 p.m. last night. So we began working on the investigation this morning, and we wanted to get an announcement out, and the President was very strong about that, get an announcement out as soon as we can. But we needed to interview several individuals so that we would have real strong sense of confidence that the statement that we were able to offer was factual and accurate. So we selected the information in the statement carefully. That's what we're able to share at this time. And there will be a hearing, and there will be charges brought forth. And all of the residents of the particular living unit were notified before the campus-wide email went out. And we're providing support to them through their community director, Lakia, and also through Abbas Hill. But we're grateful that students reported that. That's what the Maxient incident reporting system for bias incidents is all about. And we're very grateful to the students that came forward and made us aware of this particular situation. As President Mialis said, it's very disturbing. There is no excuse for this type of behavior. There's no rationalization possible. And we will proceed with that in mind, but we also want to be fair and have a just process.
Thank you to you both, and thank you, President Mialis, for sending that email. I think it does take a strong stance against that type of hatred and racism. So thank you for that, and for the willing to take our feedback from last semester and making sure that you were the one to send that email. And proud of the students as well for bringing that forward. If anyone needs any resources or anything at all, please feel free to reach out to myself, to eBoard, to Adrian, or to anyone. We're more willing to help you. But we'll move on to the speakers list. Michaela.
Hi. All right, so Sam kind of stole my question, but I can come up with a little lighthearted one. When you said, like, First thing I thought is if I was graduating this year, my mom would have been so upset if she had to try to like take a screenshot of when I crossed the stage over a Zoom call. So, is it going to be like just students in person, or is it like you can bring 1 or 2 people, or how is that going to play out? Do you know yet?
Yeah, right now we are following the current guidelines, which may change. If the guidelines change, then you can have 3,000 people in an open environment, will have parents. But right now we're going for what's the rule. And we don't set the rules, it's Rhode Island. And the Rhode Island Department of Health actually wants to every college to submit a commencement plan that they have to approve. So it's not up to us. If it were up to me and it was safe, I would have everybody come and have a big party. Though, of course, that's what commencement is all about. We are going to videotape everything and take pictures of everyone. So it's not going to be just looking at the screen and like it's like a screenshot. By no means it will be the same as having your family members here cheering you and taking you out to lunch or having lunch on campus. It's not going to be the same if things hold as they are right now. But we'll try to have a high quality video that's going to go to each one of you, and you'll have your graduation, your handshaking with your dean, your marching over, and hopefully it will be better, but your guess is as good as mine.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Brian.
So kind of going off the COVID guidelines, I was just curious of where we are in terms of Rhode Island's phase, where we are going and how close we are to possibly opening up and loosening some more of the restrictions that we have here.
We are doing much better than the state of Rhode Island, and we're doing much better than probably, if not every college in Rhode Island, most, maybe all. But John, you're much closer to the scene of the COVID, so go ahead.
Well, thank you. And our campus is really somewhat of an island right now, Brian, in that our test results are just much better than the Bristol area, the regional area, or the state. And the case counts per 100,000 people in Rhode Island and even in Bristol are actually very alarmingly high right now, even though they're coming down, and they're coming down steadily. We have a long ways to go before we're at 80 or less cases per 100,000 people. And if you remember back summer, that was a litmus test for a lot of other privileges and the loosening of restrictions. We did get a couple of updated executive orders from the governor's office on Friday. My team is going to take a close look at those, and if we're able to loosen up, particularly in the social gathering guidelines for off-campus students as well as on-campus students, we certainly will. But we have been loosening up sort of on a continual basis this week. This week you'll notice that the library will no longer be locked during the day. Students will be able to come in and out without scanning. We'll still have the temperature system in place. We'll lock it at night, and we'll lock it on the weekends. That would be the time most likely that guests would show up, and we don't want guests on campus or outside individuals on campus. But we're playing it conservative, Brian, right now because we want to stay in the great spot that we are and have the ability to open up more later. So that's our plan, and we seem to be doing better than just about every campus with the exception of Brown.
Zach LaFontaine.
Thank you, Sam, and good evening, Dr. King and President Mialis. Thank you for being here. So my question is more regarding commencement and more logistics that go behind the scenes of that. So I want to know if we can just touch upon that segment if we could. More my question is gauged at the logistics of how this is going to be kind of studied or practiced. So for instance, with the classes and the schools all going to commencement and it being the hybrid model, how are we going to make sure that it's successful in the way that there's no glitches, there's no issues? Is there going to be something that we're going to do the pre-commencement? Are we going to have more rehearsals in a sense? Because I'm assuming this is our first time doing something like this. And I'm assuming we're probably going to take the proper protocols. But I'm just curious in how we're going to do that in a way that's safe, but also not a waste of time.
Sure. We have a commencement team, and I'm a member of that team that has started meeting regularly. And as you know, there's a website as well. So we have a meeting again on Wednesday. We had a couple of meetings before to start thinking of how we're going to do commencement this year. And I gave you all the information. I have all the information I have, I gave it to you. So we're going to start figuring out details. And then, of course, we're going to have meetings with the senior class leaders that will jointly help craft the whole thing together and put it all together. So, of course, it will be part of the of orchestrating, designing the process. And unfortunately, it's not up to us this year. It's not up to us. So, but we'll try. I'm going to push to make it as exciting as we can do. We can make it for both the graduating class, but also for the parents and the loved ones that either they could be here or not here. Try to do it the best possible way. So we will. I'll know more by the time I see you folks next, which will be in a month. I committed to have a monthly meeting with you, and so either late March or beginning of April. And I'll know a lot more then, because by then we'll have to make some final decisions, because otherwise the logistics just won't work.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Jordan.
Hi, Dr. King, President Mialis. My question to you both is, would you mind providing us an update on how the campus is making any advancements in regards to diversity and social justice based on the concerns from the student body last semester?
Actually, one interesting thing that happened is that in the absence of a CDO, all of us have taken a lot more responsibility for diversity and inclusion. That includes senior administration and staff and everyone, which I think it was a good thing to have a break between CDOs, because when you have a CDO, a lot of folks think this is her job. This is sort of, my job is to do my division, and then diversity and inclusion things, it's the vice president for diversity and inclusion. And so this break, what it has done, it has brought everybody to the table of being more responsible about it, think a lot more about it, and implement things. We have an equity and inclusion plan that everybody knows and everybody's working on. We haven't really missed a beat. We're looking forward to have a new CDO. We need a new CDO. But I think that was a good thing, that people took responsibility and now they have made it part of their job, because that's how it should be. It shouldn't be we have a CDO that's the CDO's job. Everybody's job should be to care about diversity and inclusion. The senior management team, my team, has had is actually continuing having workshops related to diversity and inclusion, which have been very good. And right now we are moving at the same speed as we were moving when Ame was on campus.
I think, Jordan, all that I would add, Jordan, is that in the 17 years that I've been here, we just had the most complete and comprehensive Black Month that I've seen at any institution, but especially at Roger Williams. A lot of the credit for that has to go to David Hayes, who graduated last year and is a graduate assistant, and also Zoila Quezada. So we really wanted to make sure, and began talking about this back in the summer and also in the fall. We want to make sure that we got this right this time, because we didn't do a great job in the past, particularly last year. So that's one example of what Dr. Mialis was talking about in terms of organization and collaboration. In addition, there's a lot of training going on, and we are already starting to think about what types of programs and processes we want to have in place regarding diversity and inclusion for the incoming first-year class.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Ainsley.
Thank you, Dr. King and President Mialis, for being here. Dr. King, you just mentioned this with the trainings. I was wondering if you could go into that more and describing possible changes to the incoming classes training, possibly any additions for current students or faculty as well?
I think that's John's question.
Okay. So Ainsley, I'll try to answer that best I can. We're just beginning to talk about first-year student orientation, and also, which is another thing we don't know how that is going to look in June, right? We're all hoping that we can be in person, but you have to be prepared for a hybrid or remote experience. But we learned last year that we need to dedicate a bit more time, and that not everybody is on the same learning level as they're entering college in terms of both their exposure to diversity and also their commitment towards it. So I think what we will end up attempting this year is to have some pre-homework for students earlier in the summer so that they get to a certain level before fall orientation and they can participate in a stronger way in our conversations instead of pulling teeth. One of the that we're really working on is continuing educational programs throughout the career instead of just focusing on the first year. So one example of that, for instance, is Title IX and alcohol. So we now are creating, and thanks to Jen Stanley, additional programs on these topics for students in their sophomore and junior year, and we're going to take the same approach with diversity. I know that there was a strong resolution from Student Senate last semester about requiring implicit bias training for faculty. I don't know the status of that, to be honest with you right now, but I know that that's on students' minds and something that we are all very committed to. That's all I can share right now. I don't have specifics on what we'll do with the incoming class. I just know that it needs to be stronger and more coordinated and enhanced.
Thank you so much, Dr. King. And I would just like to say personally, I really love the idea of the continuing education, especially for diversity. I actually just got mine for the Title IX, so I'm really happy to see this coming to fruition.
Thank you.
Ashley.
Hi, Dr. King. Hi, President Mialis. Thank you for joining us. In response to a previous senator's question, you said that you do not feel as if we have skipped a beat while in the absence of having a CDO office, having a CDO, but how do you feel comfortable saying that while during the absence of having a CDO, we have had 2 incidences of bias on campus? And also another question is, how do you plan on keeping students committed to educating themselves on diversity after the initial process?
But I don't believe that if we had a CDO, this incident would have not happened necessarily. Unfortunately, this has happened, whether with a CDO or not. And unfortunately, the people that caused these situations were influenced by the existence of a CDO. So I was referring more into a change, a positive change in the culture in the university of everybody taking responsibility and putting it part of their job. I'm talking about employees of the university to do that. And of course, if employees see it as part of the job, then it trickles to the students as well. But as you know, the students are not, they come from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of biases from their homes. And some of them could be educated, some of them will never be educated in these issues. As you know, it's probably 20% of the people are totally behind all these efforts, 80% are interested and willing, and 20%, they're not going to change their minds. And we have to deal with this situation. It's not only Roger Williams' issue, that's a national, international issue. So I think we're in a good path. As a couple of your colleagues, and I see one of your colleagues, I see my screen changed. I saw her, Spiliopoulos. I remember the name.
Sophie.
It's a Greek name, so that's why I can remember Spiliopoulos. So she's in the committee, and we are going to get a great CDO. And again, I do not think that we have gone backward because of these incidents. And And unfortunately, they happen, and unfortunately, they'll continue happening. And we'll try our best to educate as many students as possible into being more responsible and respect their other family members at Roger Williams.
Geraldine.
Hi, Dr. John King, and also Dr. Mialis. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you for sending out the email. I think it was definitely necessary for you to speak out on a situation like that, although it's obviously still in the works, but I think it was a good thing to do. The only thing that I would just like to mention, in my opinion, and I think I've heard this from a couple of people already throughout the night after you did send out that email, I think we need to be consistent with the emails you send. I remember when the whole Blue Lives Matter flag went up, we were constantly being told that you couldn't send out an email about that because it didn't necessarily involve you. It involved more Dr. John King. And we kind of like ended up letting it go. But I do want to go back to that and like really express to you, like, situations like this, if you don't talk about them, nobody will give it that much attention. I cannot tell you the amount of people who have reached out or have been talking about it because of the fact that you emailed. Not to say that John King's emails definitely don't have their famousness, but in the nicest way possible, I really just want to get through to you and say, like, you need to be constantly doing the messages about this, because if not you, then who? If not the president, then who? We let it go last time, but this time, like, really, like, I understand the whole outlook of like, oh, like, this may happen again, but no, it shouldn't. We should not be even putting that out there. It should not be happening again. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that it should not happen again. And I would hate to see it happen again. Will it happen again? Probably it will. Because this is what, unfortunately, society is like. As you know, we're going to try our best, and I'm going to try to pull any strings, including my personal involvement, that I immediately got engaged this time. And I think this incident was different than last incident. I think it's a different scale. And not that I should not respond at all scales, but there are some things that are much more localized, and things could be worked out, and some things like that I do not want to be in a university that people behave in this way, and I'm sure you don't either. And whenever there is an incident that approaches this level, I'll be the first one to jump and condemn it.
Ainsley.
I would like to touch upon the previous person's point, and I personally feel like we need a more concrete answer to this. Would you definitely, I know you said that it's definitely going to happen again, an incident like this, it's not completely unavoidable. Would you still respond to that situation, given the fact that you responded to this one but not the last one? I personally, just as Geraldine said, it's so much more important when you respond to something on campus, especially of an issue like this. It shows that you are here for the students, and it makes it that much bigger when you respond. So would you definitely send out an email and respond to a situation like this if it does occur again?
If a situation like it happened today occurs again, of course I will. There's no question I will. And every situation is different. The previous incident evolved. We needed to have an investigation, find out who did that, why they did that, who went first, who went second, who went third. Dr. King issued a statement, and things kind of dragged on. That's why it's a different incident than this one. If somebody paints their face black, and they make fun of Black History Month, it's a clean-cut thing for me, okay? It's a clean-cut thing for me. And that's why immediately, even before we finished the investigation, I jumped in and wrote a note. And of course, with the caveat that, you know, we don't know for sure what happened. So you have my commitment. If it's an incident like the scale of what we think happened this weekend, of course, you have my commitment, I'll jump right in front. And folks, I have another Zoom call which started 3 minutes ago. So if you have a burning question, I'll be happy to answer it.
Well, it seems like if there are no other questions, thank you so much, Dr. Mialis, for stopping by. We look forward to your next visit. And thank you to you too, Dr. King.
Thank you. And I would like you folks to start thinking about what you would like your university to look 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You won't be here, but you'll be alums. And believe me, the better the university becomes, the more your degree appreciates. And I know that for myself. You know, when I went to Tufts, it was a great university, and it went now to the top 25, and my degree has appreciated a lot. So when I was a student there, people knew about Tufts, but not a lot. And now everybody does. And I would like to make sure that we build a strong university that you are proud now, but you'll even be prouder in the future. So the fact you will be graduating this year, next year, 3 years, 4 years, doesn't mean you should not be thinking about how you could make this university from good to great.
Well, thank you so much, Mr.
Okay,
President Mialis.
Everyone, thank you.
You too. Have a great night. Have a good night, Dr. King.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll move on to our next guest speaker, Dr. Jeremy Campbell, Director of a University Honors Program and Professor of Anthropology and Sociology, here to talk about the land acknowledgement and other exciting projects that the Student Senate and has been working alongside with Dr. Campbell. So Dr. Campbell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Senators. It's great to be with you guys tonight. I don't really know where to begin. I do have a presentation that I could give, but I think we've already, I shared with Jacob, and I think he probably passed out to all of you, the proposed kind of idea behind what we're calling the Pokanoket Path, which, as Sam alluded to, is kind of the fruit of a long-standing effort involving the students, really originating with students, student senators, multicultural student union, members of the honors program, students in the anthropology program and the history program, really trying to make a physical marker, or markers, as the case may be, on the campus to honor not just the indigenous legacy of the lands on our Bristol campus, but also to really partner with the contemporary tribal communities, specifically the Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation, who are the original inhabitants of the East Bay of Rhode Island and continue to live among the rest of us, as it were. So I've had the great privilege of working with the Pokanoket people for about 1.5 years now, doing oral history and public education projects with them. We, as a coalition of tribal members, faculty, staff, and students, tried our best to get the university to adopt a university-wide land acknowledgement in the fall. That hit some snags that were really unforeseen by any of us, that had to do with kind of proper partnership protocol when it comes to working with community members. So we're hopeful that that can happen in the future still. That was kind of a push pause kind of thing. But in the meantime, we have support from the two folks who just left the call, President Mialis, Vice President King, the Provost, Provost Everett, Vice President for Academic Affairs, and others who are really happy to support the effort that, again, a lot of people have been working on. So the where we are, and what our efforts are moving towards right now to try to honor the Pokanoket history and continued presence in this land with a plaque at the main quad near the Rogers statue. So you may notice, right, if you walk through there, there's a big plaque dedicated to the Fulton family, who were the owners of Fairy Cliff Farm, which eventually became the Bristol campus. So there needs to be, you know, that's great that we're honoring the Fulton family, but there needs to be something kind of right there in the beating heart of campus, acknowledging Pokanoket history and Pokanoket culture. But then that would then provide instructions, as it were, down to the Pokanoket Path, where there would be a couple of other signs, didactic in nature. All of these plaques would have QR codes that would link to videos, to a website to learn more. and to really see and hear tribal leaders and tribal storytellers as well. So that design is there. The text is pretty well nailed down. We have graphic designers working on the plaques right now. Our hope is to be able to inaugurate the path, both the plaques along the path, but then also the one in the center quad on October 11th, which would be Indigenous Peoples Day 2021, right? And again, I want to thank the senators for your leadership in last year's, Zoom inflected Indigenous People Day celebration on October 12th. We had an amazing turnout. We had over 400 people to hear the Sagamore, the Pokanoket Nation, and Loren Spears, internationally recognized educator from the Narragansett Nation, talk to us about Indigenous issues. So it speaks to some of the concerns that you guys have already raised about kind of the culture of campus, what we do, who we are, how we live our values. And so I think, I'm really pleased that you guys are leading this effort to try to make the campus physically and culturally more welcoming, more diverse, more reflective of the peoples who have been here, are here, always will be here as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also happy to show you stuff if you want to. Somebody's gonna have to give me privileges to share my screen though, if you want to do that. But let's just open the floor.
Sounds good, Dr. Campbell. And I did give you screen share privileges if you'd like to use that. If we have any questions right now, though, I'm more than happy to start up the speakers list. But if not,
thanks, Sam. Yeah. Let's see if anything comes out right now. Thank you.
Jake.
Hi, so thank you for coming in today, Dr. Campbell. So really the question that I just kind of wanted to ask, just for clarification for everybody, is how much input are we actually getting from the leaders of the Pokanoket Nation? Like, I just want to clear up how this is how much effort is going into this project.
That's a fantastic question, Jacob. So they essentially, the Pokanoket leadership, the sachem, the tribal council, the Sagamore, the tribal historian, I'm in weekly contact, if not twice or three times a week contact. In fact, at 7:30, I have a meeting with the tribal council. So there's regular contact, but here's the point, really, to boil it down. They get final say on matters of text, matters of layout, matters of design, because really there's no other way to do it. The Pokanoket tribe are, just like you and me, they're in school, they have jobs, etc. And not everyone has the graphic design expertise or the research expertise right. So it's a group of people, a team of people who are composing things. But ultimately, it's a kind of, we do a draft, the tribe gives feedback. Change things, do a draft, the tribe gives feedback. And so I anticipate having a first draft of plaques, keeping with the design that I shared with you, that I think Jacob shared with everybody here, with the rough kind of locations of all those plaques, but then the text, images, QR codes, website, etc. Have that all drafted by March 12th, which is next Friday, for sharing actually simultaneously with two different groups, the tribe and administrators here at RWU, because they have a say as well. Like, their say does not trump the say of the tribe, but essentially we have to kind of serve many constituencies here, right? The student voice, the tribal voice, of course, and come up with something that most people can live with. And I think ultimately everyone would be proud of as well.
Ainsley.
Hi, Dr. Campbell. I really like this idea. I think it's a great idea to especially utilize the shell path for this down by the water. I do have a odd question. I just worry about the connotation of what the path is for the student body currently, what has been used for at nighttime, on the weekends in previous years. And like that connotation kind of taking away from what the path should be when it becomes Poconoket Path. I was wondering if that has been talked about, considered, and if you have any thoughts on that.
Thank you, Ainsley. It's a wonderful question. And I must confess that this is the first time anyone's brought it up, the first time I've been thinking about it, but it does connect. You know, I've been at Roger Williams for 12 years. When you say the connotations, I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you're referring to. Add to this as well, I don't know if you guys have been down there recently, but there's a beautiful disc golf course that kind of threads its way in that space. So I think if I put on my kind of advocate helmet or my sort of even ethnographer sort of helmet, I think, you know, this isn't a sacred place, right? It's not a place that has to be, you know, because we're blessing it as the Poconoket Path, it doesn't have to crowd out other uses. It is a multi-use, multifunctional space. I hope that people will be respectful of these relatively, you know, modest-sized plaques, and potentially down the road we could even get into some landscaping that could be reflective of Indigenous ecological knowledge, Indigenous landscape, ideas about landscape, these kinds of things. We don't have enough time to do that now, but my hope would be that students, as they continue to use the space for all sorts of activities, whether it's on the weekend or night or during the day, that they're respectful and maybe even learn from occasionally reading these signs or taking a beat to think about it. I mean, it's a perfect place to honor the Poconoket because it's beautiful, it's along the water, and it frames up Mount Hope, which in the Poconoket language is known as Patumtuck, which is one of their most sacred sites, right? And so we're 1.5 miles from that and can see it and tell that story while we still have fun with disc golf and bonfires and doing whatever people do on the beach.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Brian.
So I can have 2 questions. One, how long has this project been in the works? How long have you guys been kind of planning this for? And 2, I'm just curious, have you considered any other place other than Shell Path? Was there any other place on campus that you thought about putting these plaques?
Yeah, Brian, it's a great question. Let me take the second part of that first. We haven't really considered any other places, with the exception of, I think, and Jacob can speak to this, I think, a little bit more. Jake came to Dr. Carrington Farmer and Dr. Brian Hendrickson and some other folks who've been working on Indigenous issues here on campus for a while, back in the fall, saying, hey, you know, I'd really like to have a physical marker, a plaque, right? Acknowledging Indigenous heritage on this campus. And, you know, we kind of said, well, that's great, but look at what we could even do more. Because the thing about a plaque, I don't know if you guys have seen or paid much attention to the plaque that's right on the kind of main campus entrance. There's a kind of roadside plaque that's dedicated to the Fulton family. Plaques can be kind of dead, right? They can point backwards to the past, but not really connect to the actual relationships that people have with living places, right? And so trying to do something than just make a memorial or kind of say, hey, these people once were here, do something a little bit more dynamic. That's always been our goal. And as I said before, the Shell Path in its visual kind of proximity to the most sacred place for the Poconoket people, and the fact that it's along the water, and that more than likely Poconoket people, you know, certainly fished and hunted on our campus. Seasonal wiki-ups and villages right there, right on the water, 300 to 400 years ago, lends itself to that space, lends itself to that. Now, how long has this been going on? I had a student 8 years ago draw up plans for this under a previous administration at different times. It didn't really go anywhere. I think that, you know, the events of the summer of 2020 and the interest more generally in recognizing structural inequalities and structural racism pointed at people of color, Black people, Indigenous people has lent this some energy. Finally, this effort has taken many different shapes shapes over the years. We tried to change Columbus Day about 6 years ago. That didn't go anywhere. So this specific project and this iteration is only about 6 months old, but it comes out of a longer history of trying to really materialize this partnership between Roger Williams, faculty, students, staff, programs, and the Pokanoket people and the Narragansett people and the Wampanoag people and the Nipmuc people and in short, all Indigenous peoples in this region. Thanks for the question, though, Brian.
Thank you for answering it.
Sure.
Kind of stemming off of that, if you don't mind me asking a question, do you
Sure.
think that there would be any unforeseen obstacles that you could kind of think about if for anything to stop this project from actually happening? Because like you talked about before, the push for Indigenous Peoples Day was stop the land acknowledgement. Like I know that was something separate in terms of an obstacle, but that was also prevented. Could you see anything else stopping these physical markers from actually taking their places on October 11th, 2021?
It's a great question, Sam. Yeah, I think that we'll get there as far as a text and image and layout that people like. We haven't done as much research so far in the fabrication process. I'm getting a little bit worried about that, actually, the fabrication and the budgeting process. But members of cabinet have pledged their full support for this. I think especially Vice President King, Vice President and Provost Everett, they really want to see this happen. So I don't see anything pushing it off the rails. And it's a little bit different of a thing when you talk about a physical, almost passive marker or experience, as opposed to a land acknowledgement statement. Even though a land acknowledgement statement is just maybe 4 lines that gets read or posted on a website, that is an active sort of, you know, when the president reads a land acknowledgement statement at commencement, people notice that, and it's a kind of active thing that you really need to think through all the implications of that down to the syllable. Whereas here, certainly it's important to think about the text, the layout, all the rest of it, but it's a passive thing that people will only see if they're on campus. We can always edit it. The QR codes will route to live websites that will be constantly updated. So I don't see there being operationally anything that could derail this either. And again, it's on our campus, it's contained. So I think it's going to work.
Thank you. Liam.
Yes, thank you for being here, Dr. Campbell. My question is a little bit more specific. I know we talked about the kind of the uses the shell path has had, that was mentioned, and also the Frisbee golf, the disc golf course was mentioned. And I will say, I've used that disc golf course several times since it was put up, and there has been like frequent vandalism on that disc golf course with the wooden posts that are in the ground and what have you. So my question is, what specifically like are these plaques going to be made out of? Will they be sturdy enough so that people can't take them, or you know, will be able to kind of clean graffiti? You know, what material and how are they manufactured?
Great question. I wasn't aware, Liam, about the vandalism that's happened down at the shell path. That's concerning, to be sure. As I mentioned, we haven't quite gotten far enough ahead to think about fabrication and budgeting, but I think our standard that we have in mind is something like what's right in front of the Rogers statue in the main quad, which is a post, sort of 4 posts down into the ground supporting a plaque that will face you like this, like in a national park or at a state park, right? A kind of explanatory plaque with images, text, QR code. Now, will that be covered with a kind of plexiglass that can be easily cleaned? I hope so. Right? Because paint or, I don't know, cigarette butts being put out in it. I mean, the kinds of things that one can imagine can happen there. Those things happen at the Statue of Liberty. Those things happen in Gettysburg, right? And we just need to, you know, learn how to care for these things and clean them up and add that to the responsibility list for our amazing groundskeepers on campus too, I suppose. So that's, again, with apologies that we haven't gotten that far, that's how I imagine we will proceed when it comes to that.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any questions? And just a reminder, the PDF and the presentation that Dr. Campbell sent over to Jake was sent over during the weekly update on Friday. Does anyone have any questions?
Speaking of that, if I may, Sam, if you guys have a second to take a look at that text, or to think about kind of anything that maybe we haven't thought of, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. It's not J Campbell. That'll go to Dr. Jennifer Campbell in Writing Studies. It's J.M. Campbell. But I really do appreciate your support from the beginning, really, in pushing this forward as a body. The Senate has been amazing. Multicultural Student Union, the honors program, the different programs on campus have really been supporting this. Ainsley, you sure? I see you just withdrew, but you had a question.
I'll ask it. Could you go over again just the process that what's going to happen next, hopefully, with all of this?
Sure. Yeah, so we're hoping to have complete first stage drafts of PDFs that look like the things that we hope to build by next Friday, and to share those simultaneously with admin. We have a meeting with the president, the VPs, most of the cabinet members next Friday at 9 a.m. And then I'll be sharing it with the tribe as well, and get feedback, and then kind of basically go from there, with the hopes that by April 1st to the middle of April, we've finalized a design, and by that time have identified a couple partners or a couple potential manufacturers to bid it out. I've got a couple contacts, but I haven't yet kind of said, hey, this is what we're going to do. But I'm confident that we can get the things built and installed over the summer. If we meet that deadline by April 15th, pushing it back no later than May 1st to really then get a installation plan over the summer, or early fall at the latest, and then October 11th inauguration. Hopefully in person. And another thing that you should know about the Pokanoket tribe is that, as with many indigenous nations, it's led by elders, and the elders are the keepers of culture. They are in their 70s and 80s, and they've been on 100% lockdown for going on a year now. Not getting together for meetings except via Zoom, not coming together for rituals or drum circles or anything like this. So I think it would be incredibly powerful if, post vaccinations and post COVID, we can in October welcome them to campus. I think that'd be an amazing event. Okay. So let me put my email down here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
And if anyone has any further questions for Dr. Campbell, feel free to email him or let Jake or myself know as well, and we can relay the message back to Dr. Campbell. But I know speaking to Jake about this project from the very beginning, I've been so excited to see this come to fruition, and seeing it and actually start being worked on and getting to the actual projection date is very exciting. So I applaud the efforts of you, Dr. Campbell, and to Jake as well. So yeah.
Definitely. Thank you all. And we'll be in touch along the way for sure. I hope you all have a great rest of the meeting. I'm going to slide. Okay. Photo meeting with the Pokanoket, in fact. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Okay. We have one more guest speaker for tonight before we move on to our actual org reports. But we also have General Manager of the WQRI, Ian McCallum, here, going to speak to us about some funding requests from the org. And we'll just kind of hear a little bit of the introduction to that before we introduce the bill tonight to fulfill those requests. So Ian, you have the floor.
Hey guys, thank you for having me here tonight. As Sam introduced, yes, I'm the general manager at WQRI, and from the start of the semester, I've sort of been in conversation with Jake, Carlitzer, and Adrian about a possible sort of bill to be proposed that would sort of help WQRI with funding for maybe some not exactly immediate needs, but maybe just sort of helpful sort of additions for in the long run for the booth. Nothing is really finalized yet. We don't really have a list, but we've been talking to our engineer Steve, who has given us a little bit of insight on that, and we're hoping to sort of reconvene at our e-board meeting this Wednesday, so to talk about what options we have, get some prices, and then hopefully get that over to you guys as soon as possible.
Okay, sounds good. I don't know if you are prepared to take questions, Ian, but if so, I believe Ainsley.
I can try my best.
But Ainsley, go ahead.
Thanks, Sam, and thank you, Ian, for coming in. I know you mentioned that you don't have a list yet of any needs that you will be asking for, but is there any item in particular that definitely stands out?
What I can tell you, our big ticket item, and what Steve sort of recommended to us is a new soundboard. The soundboard we have in the booth right now is pretty big, and there are a lot of sort of dials and switches that aren't really useful. So he's given us a couple quotes on those. When I say list, define list of what we want, I guess I mean more towards like prices. But with a new soundboard would most likely come a new phone system too, just so we know we have one that's like compatible with the new equipment. Outside of that, that's sort of our big ticket item in the talks right now. Other than that, I think we were also talking about maybe some new arms for the microphones. The ones we have now are kind of old and stiff, and would definitely be an upgrade if we could get that. And then also we were talking about maybe a new booth processor. And if for those unfamiliar with radio, a booth processor is basically what hooks up to our transmitter, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with our proposal for that last year. Basically what the processor does is sort of modulate the volume of the music that the transmitter puts on air. So that's kind of a spark noted sort of items that have been kind of thrown around as of now.
Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing more about it next week.
Yeah, no problem.
Brianna.
So I know you said that nothing's like an immediate need. So I'm just wondering what is the purpose of getting these items now, and how's that going to help your org?
To put it into a little perspective, I was sort of placed as GM as this sort of ideal was in the talks. I'm not exactly sure how this came up, but I know near to the end of last semester, so before I was GM, there were talks from, it might have been Jake, but I'm not exactly sure who was, I think reached out to us with the idea that if we would sort of like anything or if we need anything new, to let them know, and then that bill would be presented to Senate to see if maybe we could make that happen. But a couple of things we talked about definitely aren't immediate necessities. I think to this point we've kind of just talked about what would it be like an upgrade and just sort of help the booth in general, and B, what might just be more like I guess let me think of a good word here. Maybe just a nice, sort of asking, I guess, for a helping hand sort of item, if that makes sense. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. But I think to this point, yeah, I was kind of just put in this position to keep those conversations alive or bring them back up since they kind of slipped through the cracks in between semesters.
Awesome, thank you.
Jake.
Hi, thanks for coming in today. I know we've been talking a little bit. So you said that this Wednesday you're going to get together and really finalize the list, but about 2 weeks ago you sent me a list actually with the things that you just enumerated, and you had prices with those. And so I'm just asking, like, if that changes, then please let me know as soon as possible.
I will, and I definitely did want to make a point to bring that up, Jake, because I know initially we talked about getting a mic processor and 4 new mics, but upon talking to our engineer at last week's meeting, it was his opinion that those don't really, need a spot on the list. So I do admit I am kind of coming into this meeting a little messy. So I do apologize for that, but I talked to Carol about it, and she has said that she wants to talk about the options that Steve presented with us at our e-board meeting Wednesday, and then hopefully get a better idea.
Yeah, sure. So if I may, if you could just shoot me an email by like Friday, like if you have a list by like say like Friday at noon, that would be fantastic.
Definitely. Yep.
Adrian.
So most of you probably had no idea about this, but I used to be the advisor for WQRI. And many of you have known that I have been at this university for 15 years. The equipment that Ian is talking about has been at this university probably for more than 2 decades. And more than 2 decades. And so, yes, this equipment, it does hold up for a long time. But, there is, like, as you know, progress. And lots of different features are now more readily available and are more connected, adaptable, whatever word you want to use, with the new technologies of today. So that is one of the reasons why at the beginning, knowing that they needed a new transmitter last year and even the year before that, it was an antenna. Like, things are like at that turnover point for QRI where things are going to need to be replaced. Yes, they still work, but it's now at the point, like, it's better to stay in front of the curve before things completely break down, and then they're in like immediate need, versus now where they can really plan on these purchases and really figure out the best mode of moving forward. In regards to the soundboard, it is something that would be pretty much like custom made for QRI, which is why, Ian doesn't have a quote for that, and it wasn't in the initial list. And in regards to the mics, yes, that was on the initial request, but it was also designed for the current soundboard. They get a new soundboard, then that's why the mics and all that components of it wouldn't need to be in this request, because it would be something that would be obsolete. So those are a few things. And the reason why the general managers last semester were aware of this and trying to put things together. And Ian, who has come into his position, in December or end of November, is like coming in like, all right, what am I picking up? And it's something that's happening in the middle of the school year. I'm trying to think if there was anything else said that was kind of unclear. So yes, some of the prices will be changing, but, and we may need to do, we're going to change the bill around potentially, but ultimately, this is why QRI is coming here. And it would be stuff from the reserve account, once again, and we will talk later about questions regarding the reserve account, okay? But right now, we're just listening to what QRI is requesting.
I'm sure Ian would be more than happy to come back next week or any other Senate meeting to discuss the actual specifics once those are solidified. But if no one else has any questions for Ian at this point, thank you, Ian. And I'm excited to see how this endeavor plays out. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting me speak. And thank you very much, Adrian, for stepping in.
Thank you, Ian.
Thanks.
We'll now start moving on to the org reports. We'll start with any motions.
Motion to open old business.
Second.
All those in favor of opening old business? All those opposed? Abstentions? Old business is now open. Are there any bills for old business? Zach LaFontaine, I saw your hand before I saw the left.
Thank you, Sam. I believe I'm introducing SS47-035, a bill dissolving the bylaw review committee.
Would you like to elaborate?
Yes, sure. Sure. So this bill basically encapsulates the bylaw review committee being dissolved. So as you may know, we have reviewed all of, as it's alluded to in the bill, we've introduced over 16 bills between last Senate and this Senate due to consideration from Student Senate. So now we're just reviewing that the committee just be dissolved because there's no more reviewing to be done. So we just need some feedback and some debate on this and see how it goes.
So only because there are other bills that are sponsored by the bylaw review committee, we're going to table that until we hear those other bills, and then we'll move on to that one. If that's okay with you, Zach, and then we don't have to reintroduce, you don't have to redo it again, we'll just go back to it. Ainsley, do you have a bill?
I do, introducing SS47-037, bill amending Article 5 of the Student Senate bylaws.
Would you like to elaborate?
Yes, I would. So this bill is really touching upon the committee section of the Student Senate bylaws, like outlining the committees. It's not a huge upheaval of it. For example, like it's just taking out all standing committee chairpersons to just say all chairpersons shall constitute the cabinet. That way we can include people from our ad hoc committees such as SLIC or winter eliminations if we were able to do that this year. So it's just updating things, fixing some typos, because there was a fee missing from a student's activities fee in one line. Nothing crazy being done. One thing would be the member lateness when you have to notify the chairperson if you are going to be late, and removal of student representatives being subjected to demerits as student senators. I think that's the biggest add to this bill personally, and the only one that I could see having debate. But yeah, that's really it. Nothing too crazy here.
Point of inquiry, Mike?
One thing I have to, actually I have two questions if that is okay. What was the primary reasoning for adding the section which gives demerit to student senate? I'm sorry. Yeah, student representatives. And as well as my second question is, it says they're subjected to the same demerit system, but would they still also follow, like, let's say, the demerit system of their org that they are in, a part of?
May I direct?
Go ahead.
To the best of my recollection, it's mainly to the Senate demerit system because they will be serving on a student Senate committee, which makes sense for them to follow the student Senate bylaws while they're on that committee and follow our guidelines, especially because this mainly pertains to student life where there's like an IRHA rep, that sort of thing. So it's mainly just our bylaws, I believe, was the point, and it was added just to, hold all committee members accountable, not just student senators, which I think is really important because if you sit on SL, you know that Nikki is doing just as much work as a senator is. Just because they're not a student senator does not mean that they are not putting in the same amount of work while they are on a committee. I hope that answers your question.
We can open up the speakers list now. If there's any debate on this bill or any point of inquiries. Tadevik.
Thanks. I can't see the button on the thing. I think the changes are actually they're really good changes. I'm in favor of it personally. They're pretty simple, straightforward, and does hold a lot of people accountable, and it's a lot more concise than what we had. So thank you for those changes.
Anyone else for the speakers list? Or any motions, points of inquiry, et cetera, et cetera. Jordan, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to type so fast before someone called this bill to question. So my point of inquiry is, as student life chair, especially recently, I've had many, people just stopping in at committee just to say hi. So, and some people actually, join the committee, not from Senate or an org. My question is how are we holding people, because I do know from recent conversations that the number of student senators on a committee has to be more than non-student senate, if that makes sense. Someone can make that sound better. But how does this hold people that aren't necessarily on an org responsible in a committee?
Adrian?
Okay. I think one thing to pay attention to is those who are going to be student representatives on the committee versus those who are coming by for a meeting. So if they're yes, I'm interested in continuing on with, participating in the student life committee or X committee, then there needs to be an agreement that they are student representatives to the committee and are being held accountable by these standards. So if that means that there needs to be a form that's created that the student has to more or less sign or complete, that's in HawkLink, which is, single sign-on authenticated, that may be something that Senate needs to do. But I think that, if you are going to be giving people assignments from the committee, then they must have agreed to be a student representative and recognize that this is the repercussions if they don't follow through. I hope that answers your question.
No, yeah, it does. Thank you.
Anyone else for the speakers list?
Motion to call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Parliamentarian, we'll do the roll call.
Tadevik Kachatarian.
Yes.
Jacob Hartzler.
Yes.
Ainsley Iavana.
Yes.
Zachary LaFontaine.
Yes.
Jordan St. Ange.
Yes.
Brianna Bay.
Yes.
Alexandra DeFabritos.
Yes.
Christopher Langlois.
Yes.
Michaela Apt.
Yes.
Zachary Domian.
Yes.
Luis de Ugarte.
Yes.
Brian Carroll.
Yes.
Jack Dunn.
Yes.
Amanda Plass.
Yes.
Liam Nugent.
Yes.
Ali Schoenfeld.
Yes.
Mike Orell.
Yes.
Ashley Herzas. Yes. This bill passes.
Just for the record, to call Fiona as well.
Fiona Dolan. Sorry.
Here.
There you go. Bill still passes. Thank you for that. Any other bills for old business? Allie.
Don't remember the exact name of it, but because the PowerPoint's set up, but SS 47037 or 036, a bill amending Appendix A, Section 6 of the Student Senate bylaws. Thank you, Kayla.
Would you like to elaborate?
Sure. It's basically adding the Student Life Involvement Ceremony committee, which is an ad hoc committee, which means that it's essentially a committee that's called into fruition when this certain need needs to be met. For example, the Student Life Involvement Ceremony happens at the end of the year, so obviously that committee does not need to be happening throughout the entire year. It's laying out the purpose, structure, and everything of that nature in the bylaws, just so it's concrete and in the bylaws, as all other ad hoc committees are.
We'll open up the speakers list. Mike, go ahead.
I have just a quick question. Under Article 3, it says that council members, that there'll be 2 chairpersons, one from Student Senate and one from the Department of Student Programs, Leadership, and Orientation. And I'm just wondering, how does each of these chairpersons get elected into their respective positions from each party?
Allie, go ahead with the direct.
Sure. So obviously we, as a Student Senate, appointed Allie this year as our Student Life Involvement Ceremony co-chair, as our Senate representative as the co-chair. So that is sort of how the Senate representative co-chair is appointed, elected, whichever term you want to use. And then in regards to the Student Programs Leadership and Orientation chairperson, to my knowledge, that chairperson is chosen by Carol Sacchetti or Adrian Harris in order to serve in that position, and it's usually someone who has a work study position in that department.
Okay. And through, I'll add on to that point, usually the president will make the nomination for, on behalf of the Student Senate, and then the Student Senate will then vote on said person through legislation, which is exactly what we did last week. So, yeah. Anyone for the speakers list? Mike?
I'm sorry, one last quick thing. I'd just like to make a motion of friendly amendment. Under Article 1, where it says RWU, I think it would be better to just put down Roger Williams University, because it mentions Roger Williams University before and afterwards. I feel like it would just be more formal.
Second? I don't know if we have to second these. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm sure the committee will be okay with that. Anyone else for the speakers list? Al, yes.
Motion to call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill a question? All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so that motion, I believe, passes. Parliamentarian will do roll call.
Tadovic Kachatarian.
Can you pass, please?
Just leave her for last.
Jacob Hartzler.
Yes.
Adam Kavanaugh. He's not here. Ainsley Iovana.
Yes.
Zachary LaFontaine.
Yes.
Jordan St. Ange.
Yes.
Brianna Bay.
Yes.
Alexandra DeFabridas.
Yes.
Christopher Langlois,
Yes.
Michaela Apt,
Yes.
Zachary Domian,
Yes.
Luis de Ugarte,
Yes.
Brian Carroll,
Yes.
Jack Dunn,
Yeah.
Amanda Plass,
Yes.
Liam Nugent,
Yes.
Ali Schoenfeld,
Yes.
Mike Orell,
Yes.
Ashley Harrizos,
Yes.
Fiona Dolan,
Yes.
Tadevik Kachatarian.
Yeah.
This bill passes.
Okay, bill passes. We'll move on to the Clubs North Chair's bill that he introduced earlier during old business, which dissolves the bylaw review committee. Once the screen share is fully activated, I'll open up the speakers list now. Ainsley.
So if it's dissolved and let's say the need arises for another bylaw review committee, how would that be reestablished? Just for background knowledge.
Yeah, so I can direct to that. So if there ever came a need, well, for background, the last time bylaw review committee was established before the past year was 5 years ago. So now 6 years ago. So it doesn't happen often, but if anyone wanted to establish the bylaw review committee, once again, it would be through the form of a bill, which would be passed by the majority of the Student Senate. More information in Appendix A, Section 5, if anyone were to ever be interested in starting the bylaw review committee again, but that would always be chaired by the parliamentarian, so that would always be nice to kind of include them and keep them in the know if that are happening again. But yeah, I hope that helped.
Thank you.
Sam, one thing I might just add is I would also just caution Senate too to remember how many bills we brought forward and how many articles we brought forward and how many things we've edited and changed. So it's not as if we're forgetting things or it's been forgotten. We've done a very robust job with the two Senates. So again, if it needs to be reenacted, we can always bring it back. So.
Thank you. Anyone else for the speakers list? Any motions?
Motion to call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill a question? All those opposed? Abstentions? Parliamentarian will do the roll call unless there's a motion, since this isn't a ballot bill.
Motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Second.
Is there any dissent? It's ironic that this isn't a ballot bill. But seeing no dissent, the bill passes. Is there anything else for old business?
Motion to close old business.
Second.
All those in favor of closing old business? All those opposed? Abstentions? Old business now closed. We'll move on to new business. Any motions?
Motion to open new business.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of opening new business? All those opposed? Abstentions? New business is now open. Are there any bills for new business?
Motion to close new business.
Second.
Oh.
I will veto. Jake?
Yeah, sorry, just give me 1 sec. Introducing SS47 XXX, a bill allocating funds from the reserve account for WQRI equipment.
For regular consideration?
Yes.
Looking forward to hearing that. Any other pieces of legislation for new business?
Motion to close new business.
Second.
All those in favor of closing new business? All those opposed? Abstentions? New business is now closed.